gotta have more cowbell. Sorry, I had to do it. Moving on now to another Bond film that took many viewings to like. Number 12 on the list, For Your Eyes Only.
For your eyes only can see me through the night.
The film begins with James Bond facing off with Blofeld one last time. After trying to kill Bond by crashing his helicopter, Bond turns the tables and uses the helicopter to drop Blofeld down a smokestack, killing him. After the opening titles, a British spy ship is sunk when it is struck by a mine caught in its fishing net. The ship contained the ATAC device, which is vital to the operations of the British naval submarine fleet. So, the race is on between Britain and the Soviet Union to gain possession of the ATAC. A British salvage operation is halted when Sir Timothy Havelock, the man in charge of the operation, who happens to be an MI6 agent, is murdered before the ATAC can be retrieved. Havelock's daughter, Melina, witnesses this and swears revenge. Bond is sent to find Havelock's assassin, but hits a snag when Melina kills him. Melina and Bond then make their escape in a terrific car chase. Later, Bond begins to track the man who paid the Havelock's assassin, Emil Locke. On the way, Bond meets up with a man named Eros Christatos, who informs him that Locke is working for a former friend of his, Milos Colombo. When Bond is captured by Colombo's men, Colombo reveals that Christatos is the true villain, and that he will help Bond stop him. So, Colombo and Bond assault Christatos' warehouse, where they encounter Locke. Bond eventually catches up to Locke and finishes him off in a particularly brutal fashion. Bond then reunites with Melina and they finish her father's work by retrieving the ATAC from the ship. Upon reaching the surface, they find that Christatos is waiting for them, and he then proceeds to relieve them of the ATAC device. So, Bond, Melina, and Colombo head to Christatos' hideout to stop him from delivering the device to the Russians. Colombo kills Christatos while Bond destroys the ATAC rather than risking the Russians getting their hands on it. Thus, the day is saved once again. I really do like Roger Moore in this one. He plays a much more serious Bond in this film, and I think it's pretty awesome, I gotta admit. I also quite like that you don't really know who the villain is throughout the film. It gives it a bit of a different feel than most of the other Bond films. The rock climbing scene is probably the most suspenseful scene in the entire series, at least for me. I'm terrified of heights, so it has me on the edge of my seat every single time. I don't care how many times, how often I watch the movie, it still makes me nervous. And of course, anytime Q is given a funny scene, I get a real kick out of it.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned.
That's putting it mildly, 007.
Oh, and the film has, without a doubt, my absolute favorite Bond moment of all time. When Bond kills Locke, it's just so brutal. I love it.
You left this with Ferrara, I believe. Had no head for heights.
I do have some issues with the film. Let's start with the music. Now, don't get me wrong, I like Bill Conti's work, especially on the Rocky series. But the music here is so iffy. Half the time it's good and suitable, the other half is awkward and out of place. The music during the snow chase, for example, makes me go like, yeah. I also don't care much for Christatos' henchman, the blonde East German guy. I can't really recall his name at the moment, not like it matters. He's like a no-frills Ivan Drago. And he wasn't even the first one of his kind in the series. I I really don't care for big, blonde, invincible Soviet bad guys. They're just so cliche and boring. Lastly, that Margaret Thatcher bit at the end is so incredibly stupid. It feels just so out of place in this film. If they had put it in pretty much any other Roger Moore Bond, it would have fit fine. In my life, I've gone through 3 phases of this movie, roughly. 1, not giving it much thought because I couldn't remember the plot. 2, not liking it because I thought it was too slow. And 3, really liking it because it's different in that it's a straightforward spy film. Sometimes I like the Bond films that are different. That's why the film that's number 1 on this list is number 1. But that's another story for another day. Sometimes different is necessary. I look at this film as Roger Moore's From Russia with Love, and not necessarily just because of the similar plot, but because it's a straightforward spy film. Very few gadgets. It's Bond doing his job, which is being a spy. I give the film 4 out of 5 stars. I think it's almost good enough to be in the top 10. Almost. And that about does it for the number 12 entry on my countdown. Join me next time for the final stop on the road to the top 10.